Okay, so picking back up my diagnosis story. So I left off the last video where I had been called into the Boston Hospital, Brigham and Women's, to check in because the enlarged lymph node had not only caused my lungs to fill with fluid. I used to always call it liquid just because I don't know these medical terms, but apparently you don't call it liquid, it's called fluid. So it had caused my lungs to fill with fluid, but also the lining, like this lining around my heart. And so I guess that's really dangerous. So they had called me back into the hospital. I had checked in, and that was where we left off. So you're gonna have to excuse me a little bit as I get into my, hospital phase, because it was very long and I don't have the clearest memory of it. Like, there are certain scenes that I remember with extreme clarity, and then there's other things that I literally have no recollection of, and it's also really hard for me to remember kind of the order of things. So I'll do my best, but if I jump around a little bit, I apologize. So I remember, so now I'm in the hospital, and what we need to figure out is, well, first they obviously want to make sure that, I'm relatively safe with my heart situation going on. And they also need to figure out exactly what my diagnosis is, because at this point they think I have lymphoma, but it hasn't been confirmed with a biopsy. So again, don't exactly remember the order of all these things that I'm about to say, but I remember, okay, what do I remember? So I know that they did a biopsy. I'm guessing that was one of the things they did right away. And so I don't really even remember how they did that. I think they had to stick a needle through my back or my front or something and take out a piece of the enlarged lymph node. Or actually, maybe they found another enlarged lymph node, so they didn't actually need to go through my chest or my back. I think that was what it was. So maybe they pulled it from a different one that was easier to pull. But they took a piece of my enlarged lymph node and went off to do their tests or whatever they do. I remember that. So yeah, okay. So I think I've been in so many hospitals over the last year, so they all start to blend together, but I'm pretty sure the first one they put me in was a shared one. So I was in the same hospital room. These rooms are not big, with another person, and all they put in between you is a curtain. So it's there's a little privacy, but you hear everything going on, and they hear everything going on my end. And there's only one bathroom, so you have to share the bathroom, and the bathroom was on my side, which I guess was better, but so this poor woman had to walk over to go to the bath. It's just uncomfortable. And I wrote a blog post about this, so I guess I won't go into full detail. You can read it if you want, but sharing a room was really hard for me. I was kind of processing the cancer and the whole situation with me okay, but hearing someone else going through it was just making my heart hurt so much and making me so sad. I've always been a pretty empathetic person, and I don't ever really cry for me, but I always cry for other people. Even when I'm watching a stupid movie, if someone achieves their goals, I'm bawling, because I just find it I'm so happy that they did something that made them happy for themselves. So this woman, she's maybe in her 60s or something. Basically, over a matter of 2 days, I learned that she was in there because she hurt her back from work. When they were checking out her back, they found out that she not only had breast cancer because she had a lump in her breast, but it was inoperable, and it was too late and incurable, and there was nothing they could do. So and I hear them tell her this. So I'm in the shared room, and I hear them tell a woman that she is essentially going to die because they just found breast cancer. There's nothing they can do, and she thought she was going in because her back was injured. And it's just so sad. How can you hear that news? And her family was there with her, and her sons were just the sweetest people. Clearly loved her so much. Anytime the nurses would be there, they would be my mom is the strongest woman in the world, so if she's telling you she's in like a 7 amount of pain, she's likely in like a 12 out of 10 of pain. So like you need to like, she's never going to ask for help, she's never going to complain, so you need to ask her these, like they just respected her and loved her so much, were so sweet. And it was just really hard for me to hear like this amazingly generous and thoughtful family receiving news, you know, that is just so sad. And then like in the middle of the night, like her beep, like I learned in hospitals there's just like so many sounds all the time. Like, you know, if you're hooked up to certain machines, they make different noises when you go out of ranges and whatever it is. And then you always have this like little push button thing that calls in the nurse. And so like in the middle of the night, like her thing would start going off beeping because like her heart rate's going too fast or her oxygen's too low or whatever it is. And like she was so out of it because she was in so much pain, they had to give her a serious medication for it, that like I don't even think she knew what was happening. And so like her thing would be beeping for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, is this woman, like, is anyone gonna help her? Like I'd be stressed. So I never buzzed the button for me, but I buzzed it for her all the time because I was like, someone needs to check on her, like she's in pain, she needs help. So like it was emotionally, like I was just drained purely because I was hearing what this woman was going through. And it wasn't because I was like, oh my God, is that gonna happen to me? It was just because I was feeling so much for her and her family that I told the doctors, and like, again, I'm not really one to complain. So like all these things they were doing to me, I was just like, whatever, do it. But like after, I think it was the second or third day, I was like, I cannot be in here anymore. I'm not asking you, can you please try to find, like, I cannot be in here anymore. I cannot handle it. Like, what are my options? So we actually ended up transferring to, there's like a fancy floor in the hospital, like another thing I didn't know. So you can like pay extra to get to this, like, I think it's like the 12th floor. And like on the 12th floor, it's like quiet. We moved up there, which this is another thing I've learned through this whole process, which is like, I mean, I'm so lucky that money is not like a top concern for my family, and that we could say like, oh, the only option is if we can pay more per night, like, okay, we can do that. And like, I also don't like to ask my parents for money. Like, I'm so stubborn. I like to do everything on my own. But like, this is such a situation where I was like, I know I cannot be in this, where I was like, I'm sorry, we need to do this. Like, I will, you know, we'll figure out the money thing later. I will pay for it later or whatever, but like, I can't be in here anymore. And like, we could say yes to that. And a lot of people can't. A lot of people can't even come into the hospital in the first place. So, I mean, the whole medical situation, the people are great, but this system is just like, so, I'm sorry, so fucked up. And I've just learned so much more than I ever did. But anyway, so we moved to this like fancy floor. Not only are the rooms so much bigger, I mean, the whole vibe, it's like quiet, it's calm. I mean, it's still white and horrible, like a hospital, but they have their own menu. You don't even order off the normal hospital menu. You have like this fancy menu with like totally different dishes that they serve. So it's ridiculous that that's even an option, to be honest. But it was the only way I could get out of the shared room, and we did it. We did that. But I guess before we did that, what do I remember from that room? I remember they did the biopsy. I remember I think at this point, they also thought I had lymphoma, and they thought I likely had this certain type of lymphoma because all these reasons I don't remember. And so they actually had a doctor who treats that kind come in and start kind of like preparing me for what the treatment plan would be if the results came back in the most likely option like they thought it would. And so he's walking me my and my family through. It's like I think it was a 4-month treatment plan. Like, I remembered it as 8, but then Allie, when we were talking about this a couple months ago, she's like, no, it was 4. So this guy's telling me like, you would have to prepare for a 4-month treatment plan. Here's what treatment would have to look like. They're actually doing some clinical trials right now, so you'd have to decide like, you know, which treatment plan you want, and kind of just preparing me for that. This guy's pretty young. He's like maybe older than me, but not much older than me. And I'm not gonna lie, he's like very attractive. Like, the whole time I'm just thinking like, oh, what a cutie. And he was a nice guy, seemed smart, but I knew my parents were not going to like how young he was. My mom has very high standards, and she's not shy about sharing her opinion. So like as soon as she left, she was like, he's not going to be your doctor. And I was like, I don't know, I kind of like his vibe. Like I wouldn't mind looking at him, you know, for the year. And so like I think my mom like she had already like checked out his website online and his profile, and when he was in my room she was like, so it doesn't say you're certified for this and this, like can you explain to me about that? Or she like asked him, how many people have you treated with this number? Like she was not being shy about what she was getting at. But I mean, I totally get it. Like what is she gonna like risk my life because she's like too embarrassed to like ask difficult questions? Like I mean, this is a very important decision. And so like it was just one of those where I was like, I know what's happening here. And so that was happening, where she was kind of trying to figure out, how do we get a different doctor for Sarah, because like this can't happen. And turned out not to be a problem anyway, because I was diagnosed with leukemia. I don't remember how long it took. Maybe I wasn't yet diagnosed with it. So I move up to and then I think I had some issues while I was in this room, but once again, it's all kind of blurry. So I think there was like a couple nights maybe where I was really having really high blood pressure. No, you know, maybe the first few days actually I was still feeling pretty fine. Because like even before I came into the hospital, I wasn't having a ton of symptoms. Like I wasn't that tired. I was just, I think it was mostly okay. I don't know, my family's gonna watch this video and be like, how do you not remember it? It was horrible. But anyway, so we move up to the fancy floor, and I don't even know if I was in there for a whole night at this point. Maybe it was just the first day, or maybe it was the second day. And I remember that I ordered pasta, because we all know I love my pasta, I love my carbs. And also, obviously, hospital food, the rumors are true. It is not good, and most of the taste is just, not the best. So I kind of stuck to the basics. So I think I just ordered like pasta with no sauce, but like Parmesan cheese, and that was it. And at this point, my family, someone was with me every single minute, but they were kind of trading off. So it was only Dad who was in the room with me. And I just remember I'm kind of like laying down. I have the pasta like kind of maybe like on my stomach or my chest, and I'm just like eating it. And then I remember nothing else. I just remember like eating pasta. So I guess what happened was I don't know if I fainted or like what the technical term, I don't know exactly what happened, but all I know is I coded. So I don't even know, maybe that means my heart stopped. Like, I don't know the definition of a code. All I know is I'm eating pasta alone in my hotel room with my dad and like bringing a bite to my mouth. And then next minute I'm looking up from my hospital bed, and all I see is like 20 faces looking down on me. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? So I like piece it together. I'm like, oh, these people are like running around panicking about me. So something must have happened. I guess I passed out again or whatever it was. And it's like there's just like a million people in my room trying to figure out what's going on. So I think like my heart rate was insanely high. Maybe my blood pressure was super high. There were things that they were yelling. I see my dad, obviously, like, how, as a parent, how can you not be freaking out? But I'm like with it enough. So I remember I looked him in the eye and I was like, Dad, I'm okay. Like, I'm here. I'm okay. Like, I wasn't totally out of it. I wanted him to know, like, I could recognize what was going on, and, you know, it's okay. And I think I was having some chest pain, so I was there was like one like badass woman doctor who was running the show. I think I told her, I was like, yeah, kind of hurts in my chest, like what's going on, blah blah blah. And I don't know what they did to fix it. I don't exactly remember everything that happened, but I do know the next thing was I had to go into like immediately I had to get I did it again. The fluid from like the lining of my heart drained. So I like immediately went into, I don't think it's considered surgery really. I didn't get like cut open, but I went into like an emergency procedure where I like was laying down somewhere. they weren't gonna like put me under, but they did give me, I think, like sleepy medicine that made me like tired. But they were basically like, you can't move at all. I think I asked them somehow, for some reason I remember, I feel like I asked them like, what happens if I sneeze? Or like, what happens if I have to cough? Like, how do I not move? But I was like, I'll try to stay still. And they were just like, you're gonna have to lay here. We're gonna insert this giant needle into your chest, and then we're just gonna suck the fluid out. And like the guy, he's not even here. He's like controlling the machine from like behind some thing back in there. My mom remembers him she was like, he was just getting super pumped up. He was like, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna get her okay. And I just remember, you know, knowing what was happening. They're like, the needle, like, it has to go through your whole body. So I remember being like, this is, you know, gonna be uncomfortable. But then I'm pretty sure I fell asleep or something, because then I remember kind of it just being over and then being like, we got it out. Like, so impressive. They literally went into this like tiny space like in between my heart and the like lining of my heart, and like somehow drained the fluid. And they were just like, it went well, we got it out. I think I have a little scar from it, but I don't remember it as being painful or anything. And so yeah, so that I hadn't yet been started being treated. No chemo or anything yet. I think I hadn't got my full diagnosis yet, but you know, that's probably the closest to potential death I have ever experienced. I know my dad called my mom right away and was like, Lori, you need to get over here. And like Mom and Allie rushed over, and I can't imagine what that call was like. I mean, my dad, I know he's probably going to have flashbacks to that moment for his whole life, because I think he's the one, like, the one negative about this fancy hospital floor I've been moved to is that, like, it's quieter for a reason. There's, like, fewer nurses running around. They're not checking on you as much. So my dad saw it. He was the one who saw that I had passed out, and I think he, like, went out of the room screaming. He was like, my daughter is, like, she needs help right now. Like, I think he lost it, as he should have. Like, he's the one who got me help. But I think that definitely, that memory is probably going to scar him for a while, because that would be terrifying to experience for anyone you love. So yeah, not the best first few days in the hospital, but once again, we look back at that and we say, like, thank goodness that didn't happen in Portugal. Like, you know, was that bound to happen no matter what? And if I hadn't gone to the hospital in Portugal on Sunday, like, I think maybe this was like Thursday, like Friday, it was not that much later. And so, like, if I hadn't gone to the hospital on the day I did, would this have just happened one day when I was walking on the streets of Portugal? Like, so in hindsight, like, really lucky that it didn't happen there. And it happened when I was in a hospital, and a really good hospital, and that it could be taken care of. So yeah, this is it, you know, started off dramatic, my time in the hospital, and I think it kind of set the tone for how the next 2 months would continue. So I'll pick up there next time. Sorry, hopefully that wasn't too sad of a story, or I guess I'm not sorry, I shouldn't apologize, but next time we'll say what happens post-coding incident now that my nice little heart doesn't have any more fluid threatening its life.